Hi, retelling of the movie The Girl in the Box. Subscribe to the channel. The film is based on a true story. The movie starts with a guy named Cameron gets out of the car in the middle of nowhere. There's a girl sitting in the passenger seat and her name is Janice, and she looks upset. Cameron opens the trunk of the car and asks Janice to help him. At first Janice refuses, but Cameron convinces her. They take the woman's body out of the trunk and drag it into the forest, after which they bury the body in the depths of the forest. At sunrise, they finish work and return to the car. Janice tells Cameron that I didn't expect anyone to die. Cameron tells her that he had to kill the girl because she started screaming. After that, they leave. The next scene takes us to May 19th, 1977. It's a sunny day in the North California. A girl named Collins is standing on the side of the road, looking for a ride. After a while, a car stops in front of her. Cameron and Janice are sitting in the car and they offer Colleen a ride. And after a short acquaintance, Colleen admits that she hitchhiked from Oregon to get to her friend's birthday party. Car keeps driving until they reach the gas station. Colleen goes to the gas station to get some food, and Cameron takes a box out of the trunk and puts it in the back seat. When they start driving again, Cameron tells Colleen that they are going to stop to visit the ice caves, but Colleen needs to get off the road. Hesitantly agrees, and they drive into the woods. There Janice asks Colleen to get out and follow her to the caves. Meanwhile, Cameron sneaks up on Colleen and presents a knife to her throat. He threatens to use the knife if she resists, after which he puts on Colleen blindfold. He also shuts her mouth and handcuffs her. Then he puts her head in a drawer in the back seat. They waited out the day on the side of the road, and when dusk came they were being driven Colleen to the house. Cameron gets a girl in basement. Before leaving, he puts Colleen's head back in the box. The next day, Cameron leaves home. In the evening, he returns home and goes into the basement. He feeds Colleen and lets her relieve herself in the pot, and then beats her again with a whip, while Janice is listening upstairs all the time. That night he asks Cameron what they're going to do with Colleen. Cameron replies that he will let her go in a few days, but Janice does not believe that Colleen will go to the police. So Cameron decides that they will keep the girl in the basement. The next day, Cameron turns a wooden coffin into a prison for Colleen. Being in a coffin, one girl remembers the day she left home. She remembers how her father offered to pay for the bus fare, but she wanted to hitchhike. A few days pass and Colleen's family finally realizes that she is missing. They submit a statement to the police, but nothing turns out. 6 months pass and one day Janice comes to work for Cameron at the sawmill. She tells him that she is pregnant, that they must release Colleen. Cameron doesn't like the idea and uses Janice's paranoia to convince her otherwise. Cameron looks through magazines and finds an article about underground human trafficking. Cameron draws up a fake contract for captivity and goes to Colleen. He comes up with a story about working for a company that traffics people into slavery and shows her an article. He forces Colleen to sign a fake contract. Then he tells her that she is now their prisoner, and if she tries to escape, the company will pursue her family. He also says Colleen said that Janice was also his prisoner and tried to escape. As a result, the company found her and broke Janice's leg, but then Cameron saved her and after a while married her. The next day, he puts a collar around Colleen's neck and teaches her to call him Master. He tells her that from now on her name is Kate. He slowly makes her a prisoner who performs all their duties. Janice finally has a baby in this girl. 2 years have passed since the abduction and Colleen has come to terms with her situation. Cameron tells her made-up stories about what happened to the prisoners who tried to escape. He tells how one prisoner tried to contact the police, but the police worked for the company. The company cut off the end of the captive's tongue. All this makes Colleen more and more resigned to her situation. Janice, on the other hand, is envious of Colleen. She treats her badly and forces her husband to beat her. She even claims that Colleen's only purpose is to endure pain. One day Cameron takes Colleen to collect wood. While working he got hurt and fell to the ground. Colleen for a moment. She thinks about running away, but she's scared. As a result, she helps Cameron and even stitches him. When they return that evening, Janice complains that Cameron wants Colleen more than her. Cameron suggests they share Colleen in bed and Janice agrees. However, as soon as Cameron tries to proceed with Colleen, Janice becomes enraged. She tries to run away from their house, but Cameron stops her. Janice warns Cameron that he will never be able to touch Colleen again. That's why Colin now spends most of his time in a box. She almost never gets out of the drawer, and for years have passed since her abduction. Colin looks physically ill, and one day she sees Janice's daughter. The girl's name is Amber. Colleen is shocked by how much Amber has grown. She has clearly lost the time count. One day Cameron and his family leave for the lake. Colleen is left alone and begins to wonder why she endures all this. She begins to have visions, in which the priest tells her that suffering is a test of God. She even sees her sister Bonnie. In the end, she has a dream that she is drowning and eventually opens the drawer door. Cameron returns and finds the drawer door open. He's afraid Colleen has run away, but she's just sitting in the shower. He learns that Colleen has read in a book about the obligations of a prisoner. He approaches Janice and tells her that they should let Colleen out of the box. He also tells Janice that he will probably sleep with Colleen. He justifies his intentions by reading an excerpt from the book that allows the owners to sleep with their prisoners. From that moment on, Colin starts spending more time outside. At home, she's starting to be friends. Janice also comes to her senses and begins to treat Colleen well. Almost 6 years have passed since the abduction, and Colin now works as a maid for Cameron. Meanwhile, Janice has become very friendly with Colin. She takes her to church and even lets Colleen play with her daughter. Cameron has become more violent towards Janice and wants to get closer to Colleen, so he tells Colleen that she can visit her family. He claims he convinced the company to let her come. Then Cameron takes Colleen to her house. He warns her that if she says something bad, the company will kill her family. He leaves her in the house. Colleen's family is thrilled to see her again. Bonnie tries to ask Colleen where she has been all this time, but the girl is silent. She tells the family that the guy who dropped her off is her boyfriend and his name is Mike. The next day, Cameron comes to pick up Colleen. Her parents ask about how their daughter lives. Cameron comes up with a story about how they meet and assures that he is going to marry Colleen. Eventually they leave and return home to California. Janice K. By this time, she has become very religious and feels guilty about her captive. One day she overhears that her husband intends to marry Colleen. The next day she leaves home to stay with her parents. This is very frustrating for Cameron, so he punishes Colleen with a whip and puts her in his barn. He leaves her there and drives off in the car. Meanwhile, Janice returns and frees Colleen. She advises Colleen to return home, but she does not want to attach Cameron. Janice tells the girl that Cameron killed the girl a few years ago, and they buried her in the forest. She also tells Colleen that there is no company of prisoners, and she can go home. Colin agrees and takes the bus to Oregon. The girl spent 2,640 days in captivity, but at last she is free. On the other hand, Cameron is caught by the police and sent to prison for 104 years. Janice becomes a witness against Cameron and receives a pardon from the authorities. This is where the real story ends. Subscribe.